Thanks, Goose. Well, the Sacred series has been around for about 10 years, but now with a new developer, the formula's had a bit of a shake-up with this new release.
Yes, Sacred 3 is a sequel in name only. Abandoning the exploration and roleplay elements of its forebearers, it now focuses on hack and slash and isometric action.
The situation is dire. Emperor Zane seeks to slake his thirst for revenge with the heart of Ankaria. A small group of heroes must thus stand against an entire empire. The time for resistance is now!
Thank the gods. You really are good at this. You know that?
The setup is wacky to the point of being convoluted.
Yeah, what I managed to gather is that the story takes place in Ankaria, a land which has fallen under siege from a tyrant named Zane, Lord of the Ashen Empire and all-round nasty guy.
Not a very threatening name, is it, Zane?
Yeah, I just think of Billy Zane, who I guess was kind of menacing in Titanic.
Well, the Zane of this story seeks to steal the heart of Ankaria to help him exact his vengeance upon the world. I'm still not entirely sure what the heart of Ankaria is, but we're going to have to stop him getting it.
Indeed.
I've seen it. It's as big as my head.
There are 4 preset characters to choose from, each with their own little backstory. There's a seafaring barbarian, an angelic paladin or an ill-equipped spear wielder for your melee classes, and a calm and collected bowman if you're after a ranged experience. There's also Day 1 DLC, which gives you access to a 5th character, which is a brooding blood mage.
Yes, now Day 1 DLC doesn't really bother me that much anymore, because it's usually like some skin of a character or maybe a specific weapon, but in this case, it's pretty much the hero of the trailer. So to put him behind a paywall is a bit of a jerk move.
Yeah, it's poor form, isn't it? Once you've selected a character, you're sent to the level select screen, which is beautifully designed. It gives you an overview of the world, and as you complete missions, you wipe out the red markers, which signifies that you've reclaimed that land. It's a nice touch.
The levels themselves are a mix of campaign missions which drive the story, as well as arena challenges. These are small grinding levels, such as wave modes and treasure hunts, which help to level you up and score some gold between major missions.
Yeah, it's all quite arcadey, isn't it? Your game time is broken up into little segments, so I never really felt compelled to settle in for a lengthy session.
Yeah, it's very much a quick fix hack and slash, plus all the levels are unlocked right from the start. So you can jump into a super high level mission to test your mettle. That does mean you're going to have a bad time.
Help, man.
Yeah, it's generally smarter to stick to missions that are about 1 or 2 levels above your own. As you make your way up the board, you encounter plenty of variety in the locations. Nearly every level has a unique setting and design with some stunning backdrops. It's quite pretty.
Yeah, it looks great, but those levels are just so linear. There's no freedom to explore, which means the world just feels like a whole bunch of disconnected corridors.
Well, not all RPGs need to be big, sprawling epics, Barjo.
I agree, and linear can really work for an RPG, but I just feel like the world itself still needs to feel established and cohesive, and they didn't really nail that here. Zane can have the heart for all I care.
I think my main issue with the game is the combat, and that's where it makes its biggest departure from its predecessors, I think. All of the characters play in essentially the same way. You've got a main attack, a shield breaker, a block or dodge, and your combat skills.
Early on, the combat is reasonably satisfying. Your character zips about, slashing through hordes of enemies. However, the game isn't that challenging, so after a while it can't help but feel like you're just grinding your way through to the next level. There's just not enough reason to fight.
Yeah, I think a big part of that grindy feel comes from the lack of combos and the fact that you can only have 2 skills equipped at a time. You can spend money on upgrading gear and buying new skills, but it doesn't actually change the way in which you approach combat.
Now let's sing a song to celebrate.
Just lacks the flair of other hack and slash games, like God of War for example, which really let you mix things up. The main issue though is that there just isn't enough loot. Hack and slash veterans are no strangers to dull combat, but that's because there's always the promise of better gear somewhere down the road, something to reward you for your efforts. And this didn't really have that.
Yeah, I mean, in a game with limited combat and character customization, the loot is the only thing that gives you that sense of progression.
When you got it, you got it. But make sure you get the goodies before the next wave comes.
I really felt its absence in Sacred 3, but look, there is some fun to be had here and there.
Definitely. I enjoyed the Barbarian Slam, which deals some nice area damage. The Paladin has a cool lightning ring attack which surrounds her, and I love the execute animation. It's it's a nice way to move around the battlefield.
Yeah, and some of the enemies, especially the bosses, have decent AoE attacks.
Shatterjack, do your worst!
These are a little bit more fun to take on as you dodge damaged circles or telegraphed charges. But again, it just doesn't mix up the combat enough to make it fulfilling.
Yeah, there is co-op, which is great, but once again, it doesn't really change the gameplay that much. Because the characters are so similar, there's no real sense of teamwork. Sure, you dish out more damage as a team, but enemy health is also slightly increased.
And down he goes.
I did have the occasional bit of lag online, but for the most part the matchmaking system is pretty smooth. However, there's no push-to-talk sensitivity activation for chat, so everyone's mic is always on. An annoying oversight.
Yeah, and there are already more than enough voices to contend with this constant barrage of freaking inane chatter from the game characters.
How do you feel about being crushed under a building? I kinda like it.
Hey, no fair. His ships are firing on the building. Go, go, go! Get out of there!
But the worst would have to be those annoying spirits yammering on.
You may keep me, if you keep me beautiful.
There are actually a number of different sword spirits you can equip. Each has its own stat buff, but unfortunately most of them are pretty unimaginative, and the best one there just happens to be a chauvinistic mage, who constantly throws lines like this at you.
I love doing it with you. Freeway. I'll still respect you in the morning. Oh, baby.
What are you giving it?
Well, I think the biggest problem with this game is that it doesn't know whether it wants to be an RPG or a hack-and-slash brawler, and that confusion just brings the whole experience down. So there is some good here, but I think it's worth 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's a technically sound, albeit limited action game, but it's just going to disappoint fans of the series, I think, so I'm giving it 6.
What a ride! You might want to leave this to the big boy.